Welcome back to another GTN Coach's Corner, where I will be answering your triathlon training and racing related questions. This week I'm going to be talking about optimal gap between races, should you listen to your watch for recommended paces, missing sessions from being ill and trying to catch up, limited time with pool access and trying to plan your swimming for your season, and is there a danger of too much sugar as an endurance athlete? Well, keep your questions coming in using the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner in the comment section below this video, or any video for that matter. Right, into the first question, and that comes from Casper Steenkamp. They've said, thanks for a good discussion. Perhaps the next topic could discuss the minimum / optimal gap between events. I'm considering doing a 70.3 4 weeks before my first full Ironman. It could either be perfect building block or break me down before such a big race. This is a really good question. We've actually had this one quite recently, and I think with everyone kind of planning their seasons now, and I've had a lot of people talking about this lately, it's probably a good one to just revisit. So there is nothing wrong really with doing a 70.3 4 weeks out from an Iron, providing that you have some experience in triathlon and you're well conditioned. If this is your first year or season, or first couple of years or seasons in triathlon, that might be a big ask and a tall order, in which case you probably just want to focus on that Ironman and make sure the prep is perfect for that. If you've been doing triathlon for a while, you should be fine. And actually doing that 70.3 could be perfect prep for the Ironman. I know James, when he was racing Ironmans, used to do that quite often ahead of the Ironman World Championships, in fact. The thing to bear in mind, however, is, presuming the Ironman is the big race, the A race that you're aiming for, then the 70.3 probably needs to act more like a training race, a big training day. If you start tapering down into that 70.3 and then trying to peak and taper down into the Ironman as well, you're essentially going for about 6 to 8 weeks of very limited training, and it affects your prep for that Ironman. If you think about it, you taper into that 70.3, then you recover from that 70.3, and then you only have a couple of weeks to really prep for that Ironman. So bear that in mind, and you may want to consider not tapering into that 70.3, training through and really trying to nail that Ironman. But yeah, it really does depend on your situation, where you're coming from, but something to bear in mind. If you've got a coach, then talk to them about that and try and plan your season accordingly. Good stuff. All right, moving on to next question from Medane31. Why does my Garmin constantly recommend me fast paces? It calls it base training, which is 5:37, I'm assuming per kilometre, for around 41 minutes, and I usually end up in zone 4. I usually run 2 to 3 times per week. That's why I thought that these recommendations do not fit the data that I put in. Yeah, interesting. And I've got to be honest, I've looked at my smartwatch before and been a bit puzzled by some of the paces that they've churned out to me over the years. Yeah, I would probably take some of these with a pinch of salt. Now, it does very much depend on the data that you are putting in, which you have mentioned yourself. Now, if you are using an optical heart rate sensor through the watch itself, it's worth bearing in mind these can be a little iffy at times of reading an accurate measurement. So when you say you're in zone 4, are you really in zone 4? How are you basing that? Is that from heart rate? So as I say, it does really depend on the data that you're putting into it. I wouldn't necessarily rely on the information it's giving you as gospel, because if that data that you're putting in isn't always that accurate, well, the information and the recommendation it's going to give you aren't also going to be that. So it's very, very important that you train correctly, and I would just maybe use them as a guide, maybe a bit of motivation from time to time, but maybe not, as I say, as gospel. All right, moving on to the next one from Noah Show. Hi guys, I'm training for my first Ironman in August next year, but I've been unwell for the past week and have missed half a dozen sessions. Should I add these on to my training plan over the next couple of weeks, or forget about them and move on? Again, a question we get quite a lot, and now is a good time of year to be discussing this because there's a lot of illnesses going around. First off, August, it's a long time away. I've sort of wary of saying this because August will probably creep around very quickly and it'll scare you a little bit. But you have got plenty of time to make sure that you're recovering, getting over illnesses and just cracking with your training. So never try and play catch up, particularly if you've missed half a dozen sessions. There's no way that you can catch up on that. However, what you should be doing, and if you've got a coach, this is something that they should help you on, is not necessarily just carrying on with the plan as it was previously set out, because you have missed some of the sessions from that previous week. So whether it's a case of bumping them to the next week and bumping everything on a little bit, or in fact actually taking a step back, or even trying to modify some of the future sessions so that you're still getting the most out of them rather than just continuing as if nothing had ever happened. But yeah, first and foremost, do not try and play catch up. I've seen far too many people do that over the years, and it never ends well. All right, next one from Caroline Martin. I live in Canada and training for my first 70.3 in July. How can I train for the swim? The local pool, which is a 30-minute drive away, only has public swim access for an hour a day when I'm at work and an hour at 8:30 p.m. Do I wait until the spring and focus hard on the swim then when the lake water isn't frozen over? Any swimming I manage to get in now is very sporadic, and this is my first ever triathlon. Whoa. This is a really tricky question because, well, it really depends on you as an individual, your swimming background and everything with that. Waiting until spring with your event in July, if I'm honest, is leaving it a little bit late. If you come from a swimming background, having done years of swimming, maybe as a child or teenager, you might get away with this, but that's my background, and even I would be a little bit nervous in doing so. So I would recommend just trying to get any swimming in where you can. So whilst you're saying you can swim, but it's a bit sporadic, if that's all you can do, then I'm afraid just take what you can and just make the most of those sessions when you can get in. What I would do on top of that is back that up with some sort of cross training, some strength training that's specific to swimming outside of that. So if that's using some swim stretch cords at home, some therabands, various sort of gym core exercises that can translate nicely to swimming so that you are making the most out of that time that's out of the swimming pool. And as you say, as soon as you can get in the open water, just really go for it, make the most of it. It is worth pointing out some of the more quality swims can often be performed better in the swimming pool in terms of technique, some of the sort of reps where you're really working on pace. It's a little harder to do that in the open water, but beggars can't be choosers, and it sounds like in this instance you just need to make the most of any opportunity you can, and yeah, go with it. So yeah, it's a tricky one, and I'm sure many other people are in the same boat. Swimming is a hard one in terms of access. I also actually have a similar thing with local facilities near me. So best of luck to you, and yeah, let us know how you get on. Right, final question from Underdog Triathletes. Hi all, and thanks for the excellent advice as always. Following on the theme of nutrition, I've recently started experimenting with higher carb fueling, especially during my long rides, 3 to 5 hours depending on the week. I know I definitely need more carbs than I'm used to. I've usually just had a gel or half a bar per hour, probably close to 20 grams per hour, which is way too low. But I'm worried about what else I'm taking in as I aim for that 60 to 80 gram carb target. Specifically, how concerned should I be about sugar? It feels almost impossible to hit 320 grams of carbs without also taking in 80 or more grams of sugar, close to twice a normal person's total daily intake. How bad is that? Or is it something that as an endurance athlete should disregard completely? Right, a lot to unpick here. Great question though, because I feel like there is a lot of worry and concern around sugar. Now, first off, it's great that you're trying to up your carbohydrate intake. I think that's very smart. 20 grams of carbs per hour does sound a little on the low side. Now, you may have heard some of the pros talking about these crazy numbers, grams of carbs per hour they're trying to hit. It's worth bearing in mind that they have built up to that over time. So don't just suddenly start trying to hit those optimal numbers that you're hearing from these guys. Now, you might benefit from actually jumping on something like the Precision Fuel and Hydration website and going through their fuel planner and inputting a bit of data about yourself, your height, weight, your race, the time that you're aiming for, and it will actually churn out a bit of a fueling and hydration plan for you and suggest sort of the number of grams of carbs per hour that you should be taking on, and also how you go about doing that. So that'd be the first port of call, but I reckon you're probably in the right ballpark, 60 to 80 grams carbs per hour. Now, sugar does get a bad rap. Obviously, we are naturally told in day-to-day life that sugar's bad, and if you're just sitting on a sofa eating a load of sweets, then yes, sugar is bad, although really nice at the same time. We're endurance athletes. We do require a lot of energy. We're putting our body through kind of, at times, slightly obscure and unnatural thing, and we're requiring a lot more than usual. So that total daily intake that you're referring to is kind of thrown out the window to a degree. Now, depending on the intensity or the pace that you're going at, simple sugars, carbs are the easiest and quickest way to get that energy, and therefore that's why we take on a lot of gels, chews, because we're able to digest and get that energy as quickly as possible, and we're using it, we're genuinely using it. So whilst sugars get a bad rap, we're told they're bad, in this instance they're actually really helping us, so I would kind of forget about those worries. However, if you are working at a slightly lower intensity, you're going to be out there for a long time, you're doing a long endurance event, you may actually want to take on some whole foods, some foods that you're more comfortable with taking on, and mixing that with some of those simple sugars and carbs. So you can have your bars, your bananas, your flapjacks and things like that, because you may just want some solid food in your stomach and also just a slightly slower release of carbohydrate over that long endurance event. Now, whatever you do, make sure that you practice this in your training, get yourself comfortable with that. And as I say, do go and check out the Precision Fuel and Hydration website, because they do also suggest things like this depending on your preferences. But great question. Again, if you've got any more questions like this, please drop them in the comment section down below using the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. Thank you for all of those today. I hope you've enjoyed it. So give it a thumbs up, give it a like. See you next time.